This is the Louie T Network.
Draft Zone. Draft Zone.
Welcome, you are in the
Draft
lab room. I'm your host, Lou.
Zone.
Thank you for joining me. 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. And it's the Who's Next format, which means be the first to leave a comment in the bottom of this video's comment section stating the team you want to see next and the phrase next. Those two components, in addition to being first to leaving that comment, and your team is going to be next in this draft wrap-up series. How we do this draft wrap-up series is pretty simple. We use our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run, to break down every single player of every single team's NFL draft in 2014. You give them a grade. Using the baseball grading scale, you get an aggregate score for every single player of that team's draft. You add it all up, get the aggregate, and that's the team's grade for this draft. And then guess what? We do it again with the next team that was picked by you, the viewers, and then we move on, and so forth, and so forth. So, pretty simple, right? So without any further ado, let's get to the team that held the first pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans. So, I've got my big board behind me. You know I got my handy dandy pointer. Let's get to business with the Houston Texans 2014 NFL Draft. So, you start with the #1 overall selection, Jadeveon Clowney. Defensive end out of South Carolina, and I think he might have been the most scrutinized player in this draft, if not, and you want to say that it was Johnny Manziel, if he's #2, then he was a very, and I mean a very close second. I'd like to think that he was the most scrutinized player in this draft, and I don't need to go over Jadeveon Clowney, so I'm not. I'm just going to give him a grade, and I'm going to move on to the second pick. So you look at, now I'm playing. So Jadeveon Clowney, #1 overall selection, defensive end out of South Carolina. So here's a guy that, let's go back to 2012 for a second. And I think the 2012 season set the stage for what was going to be a tumultuous 2013 season. All right. The guy put up ridiculous numbers in 2012, and he capped it off with the monstrous hit heard round the world in the bowl game versus Michigan. And I think that really heightened the expectations of 2013. And this guy was under a microscope, the likes of which we've never seen in college football. And I think the thing that really made it a situation that was going to be a little odd and strange was the whole, is he going to play? Isn't he going to play? Is he going to sit out the 2013 season because he doesn't want to get injured? And I don't even know if he was really considering that or not. I mean, to be honest with you, I think 2013 was a year that he was really set up for failure. And for him to come out, only notched 3 sacks after having double-digit sacks in 2012 and really playing out of his mind, it drew some red flags. It made people go back and take a second look. And the guy never comes off the field. I've never heard anyone say that this guy lacks work ethic or anything like that. You may hear one or two erroneous reports, but I've never heard a coach say, hey, this guy's not giving me everything he's got. And so I think that as fans, as people who you listen to, you know, the media feeds us things and we take it at face value. And sometimes we don't even listen to the other side of the story. If guys tell us something, we run with it, and it is the end all be all. It's the gospel. It's the truth. But I think he got a bad rap because a lot of us went into this situation in 2013. We looked at the numbers. We looked at what he did in 2012 versus what he did in the production of 2013. And you heard people say he was taking plays off and he was doing this and he was doing that. And then you see it visually. You see the evidence that, hey, maybe this guy, and again, sometimes you got to take the context of which you see something. And I don't think we did that last year. I know there were times where I'd turn on the game and I'd see Jadeveon Clowney and it looked like he was giving half effort. But that maybe it wasn't the case. Maybe the guy had been on the field on a 12-play drive and he had been, because the guy doesn't come off the field that often. I mean, even when he's banged up, he stays on the field. I don't think people give him enough credit for some of the things that he does do. We like to pick apart the things that he doesn't do. And when it's all said and done, the guy is an athletic freak. You're talking about 6'6". You're talking about 275. You're talking about a wingspan of a guy that's probably more like 7'2". You're talking about a vertical leap of over 35 inches. You're talking about a guy with a broad jump of 10.4. You're talking about a guy that's running a 4.5 340. You're talking about an athletic marvel, the likes of which we've never seen in the National Football League at the defensive end position. And so you have to really take into consideration what this guy brings to the table. And in 2012, you saw it. In 2013, teams did everything in their power to make sure that this guy wasn't going to beat them. And he still went out. He played. It was tough on him. And he was under a serious microscopic view. And everything he did was picked apart. And I think that he got a raw deal. And this type of talent, you can't pass up. And that's why I knew he was going to be the #1 pick. And it was funny because throughout the process, everybody was saying, Texans need a quarterback, Texans need a quarterback, Texans need a quarterback. And I'm saying, you're right, you're right, you're right. But they don't feel like any of those quarterbacks are worthy of the #1 overall selection. And plus, you got Jadeveon Clowney staring you in the face, which is a guy from out of this world in terms of his body type, and his skills and the production that can come from his body type and his skill set. And so there's no way you pass on this guy. Mike Mayock said it best. When he wakes up tomorrow, he's going to be the best defensive end on the planet. Talent-wise, he's got to go out and be the best. And he's got to make the decision to be the best. And I think putting him in the same room with J.J. Watt and getting him into a defensive scheme with a guy like Romeo Crennel, they're going to get the most out of Jadeveon Clowney, and that's a scary proposition, okay? This guy is going to be a stud in this league. I know a lot of people think he's going to be a bust. And if mentally he's not locked in and he's not willing to put in the work, because look, you can get by with being talented. People do it all the time, and they never fully materialize their full potential. They never manifest the player that they could become because they're so talented, and they rest on those morals alone and say, hey, I'm a talented guy, I can skate. If he's willing to put in the work, that his 6'6" frame, his 275-pound, 4.5 340, 35-inch vertical, 10.4 broad jump, machine-like frame says he could be. If he's willing to put in the work and become an all-pro, not a Pro Bowler, not a good player, but the best, this guy has the potential to be a Hall of Fame type player. But again, let's just start with being a good player. Then we'll go to being a great player. Then we'll start talking about being one of the all-time greats. He's set up for all of those things to happen, but he's got to want it, and he's got to want it more than somebody else wants it for him. He's got to want it, and it's got to be because he wants to do it, not because somebody else wants him to do it. But in the first round, #1 pick overall, defensive end out of South Carolina, Jadeveon Clowney, is a home run. I don't have to tell you that. You know that it's a home run. Now he's got to go out and make sure that everybody else knows that this is a home run. But it's a home run for the Texans. And I'm looking forward to watching this guy. I'll have a bird's eye view of his first game as they'll be playing the Redskins in week #1. I'm a Redskins fan, so I will be dialed into that game to see how he chases Robert Griffin the third round and how he plays the run and all of the ways the Texans will be utilizing this guy in 2014 and moving forward. So you go to the second round, 33rd overall selection, offensive guard out of UCLA, Xavier Su'a-Filo, and this is one of my favorite offensive linemen in this draft. If you've been watching my videos, you know how I feel about Xavier Su'a-Filo. I wanted the Redskins to draft him, and we were 1 pick away from having the opportunity. The Texans said, pump your brakes. He's ours. Back off. Enough said. And this guy, to me, at one time, he was misplaced at left tackle at UCLA. Struggled. They kicked him inside to guard, and the rest is history. To me, this guy has all pro. Not Pro Bowler, not a solid pro, all pro written all over him. And to be honest with you, if this guy gets in the weight room and can start to sculpt his body and become an even better athlete that's a little bit more stronger, we're talking about an animal, because the movement skills on this guy is off the charts. I think he's so versatile as a guard, and this is rare because normally as a guard, you're put into a box. You're either a guy that flourishes in the pass or the run, and you either flourish in a power run blocking scheme or a zone. Normally, guys can't do both. Xavier Su'a-Filo is the exception to the rule. You want to run zone blocking? That's fine. He can get to the second and third level. He can get there, get that reach block, and hook and seal and make sure that there's a clear rushing lane for the running back. And there's nothing worse than having a lead blocker or a guard, or even a tackle for that matter, that gets out and gets in front of you and you can't read his block because he doesn't seal it one way or the other. You don't have to worry about that with Xavier Su'a-Filo. He's going to get out there and he's got a nasty streak. And that's something that I feel like sometimes we overplay and we make a big deal out of, oh, he's not as mean. But when you're talking about the run game, it takes attitude to block in the run game. In the passing game, you're absorbing blows. You're taking what the defender is giving you and you're anchoring down and you're trying to hold your ground. In the run game, you gotta be mean. You gotta be nasty. You gotta finish off runs with an edge that says, this is going down whether you want it to or not. You gotta be willing to move a man against his will. And he has that in his repertoire. And not only is he strong, but I think he can get even stronger, and that's the scary part about him, is that he's strong enough as is. He's going to get stronger, and he's quick. He has all the movement skills necessary to be elite at the next level. I love Xavier Su'a-Filo. I can sit here and talk to you about this guy all day long, but I'm not going to because it's a moot point. You know how I feel. You know where this is going. Second round, 33rd overall selection, offensive guard out of UCLA, Xavier Su'a-Filo is an absolute, no doubt about it, home run. You can put it on the board. Yeah. Home run, second round. Texas get great value. A guy that I thought easily could have went in the first round falls to them early second, and they don't waste any time snatching him up. Xavier Su'a-Filo, guard out of UCLA, now a Houston Texan in the second round. You look at your third round selection, 65th overall, tight end out of Iowa, C.J. Fedorowicz. And this is a inline Y type tight end. This is a traditional tight end in the National Football League, a guy that's going to line up, block his tail off. And I was actually pleasantly surprised at how well he blocked, but how well he moves when he's not blocking. And he's deceptively quick. He's not fast. He's a 4.7, 8.40 type of guy, but he's strong as an ox. Over 25 reps at the combine at 2 1/4. And so the guy's strong. He's got functional movement skills. And he's one of those guys that'll block for 7 consecutive plays. Block and do a really good job of it, and block and block and block. And then he'll fake the block and he'll go out for a pass. And again, he's one of those guys that's sneaky quick. So you're expecting him to come and engage in a block, and then he swims by you, and all he needs is that little step, and then he's got a big frame at 6'5", about 265, and so you can't get back into the play and knock the ball away. Strong hands, can catch the ball away from his frame. He's a really solid blocking tight end that can catch the football as well. The production at Iowa won't blow you away. It won't make you take a second look, but it's there. And if you look at the plays that he makes usually all the plays that they ask him to make at Iowa. I like C.J. Fedorowicz. It's something that the Texans have lacked in their offensive game plan for a while. A guy that can just come in and win at the point of attack at the tight end position as a run blocker. They've always had pass-catching threats in Houston, Owen Daniels, and all the guys that you've had at the tight end position. You've lacked a guy that just could come in and win at the point of attack at the tight end position. And so this guy's going to come in. He's going to run block for you and catch an occasional pass. And you've got plenty of guys that can catch the football in Houston at the tight end position. So it's not like you're going to be missing anything there. He'll come in, he'll run block, he'll do everything you're going to ask him to do in that particular area. And then when no one's expecting it, he'll leak out into the flats, catch a pass, and those are the type of plays he'll make that'll make the difference in the football game. You'll get down to the 3-yard line, they're expecting him to block, he'll block, and it'll be a tight end delay, and then he'll leak into the flats and he'll catch a touchdown pass. He'll block on a crucial 3rd and 2 late in the ball game. He'll leak out. He'll act as if he's blocking, come across the formation, catch the football. Maybe it's high. He'll go out, stretch across his frame, pull it down. You win the football game. You're taking some knees in victory formation. That's the type of plays C.J. Fedorowicz will make for you in this offense. And so in the 3rd round, 65th overall selection, tight end out of Iowa, C.J. Fedorowicz for me is a solid double. I mean, the guy's going to come in. He's going to run block. He'll catch the football. He'll do all of the dirty work in this Texans offense. And I like him, and it's a double for the Houston Texans in the 3rd round. You move on to the 2nd, 3rd round pick. Texans trade up. And this was a really great get by the Houston Texans. 3rd round, 83rd overall selection. Nose tackle out of Notre Dame, Louie Nix. And I am a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, so I didn't have to watch any film here. I can tell you all about my man, Louie Nix. And so watching Louie Nix for the last 2 or 3 years, it's really simple. When the guy is fresh and the conditioning is where it needs to be, he's one of the best defensive tackles, nose tackles in all of college football. I mean, you watch this guy and the quickness, and this is a big man. We're talking about, and again, he's one of these guys, you got to watch his weight, and you got to watch his snaps. He's got to be on a snap count, and you got to make sure that he's fresh. You're platooning him, and if you can keep this guy around 330 pounds, he's a freak of nature. When he gets to 340 and 345 and up there toward 350 and north of that, that's when you get a sluggish Louie Nix that can't give you as many snaps, that's not as explosive, that's not getting to the quarterback, that's not knifing into the backfield and disrupting running plays. He's just not the same animal. Okay, now he's still taking on blockers and taking up space and doing all of the things that makes this guy dynamic, but he's not the same player that had a 1st round grade on many people's draft boards. However, when this guy is 335 pounds, 330 pounds, and he's fit and spry, and he's in shape, and he's not tired, and he's got his mental juices flowing, and he is engaged mentally in the football game, there isn't many better at what he does. I look at him as a Vince Wilfork Jr. Now, I want him to adopt that mentality because Vince Wilfork doesn't take plays off. He plays a high volume of snaps week in and week out. Nobody has to tell Vince Wilfork to keep the motor running hot. Once the game starts and Vince Wilfork is playing, the motor is hot, and it stays that way for the entire ball game. And Vince Wilfork makes plays that other guys simply don't in the National Football League. Louie Nix has the potential to do that. He's quick, cat-like quick agility, okay? He can move really fast and light on his feet for a guy his size. All right. I look at Louis Nix and I say, man, you've got all of the tools necessary to be great at this game, but you've got to want it, and you've got to want it all the time. And there's times where he just stands up. They snap the ball, and he just stands up. And he's just there. And he's just in the way, but he's not doing anything. And you're like, come on, Louis. You're better than that. And then there's times when he shoots the gap. It's a double team. He splits it. He's in the backfield waiting on the ball carrier. There's times where he swims the guard, beats the center, gets to the backfield, and sacks the quarterback. And he's got athletic ability where he can run the quarterback down. Has no problem doing it. I mean, the guy is like a big ninja. And so it's all about keeping this guy fresh, him keeping his weight down, and him giving it everything he's got on every single snap. And that's what scared some teams away. The inability for this guy to stay in shape and the inconsistencies in his game. And he has no business being around in the third round. I think everybody saw something at the same time in this draft, and I really don't know what it is, because even with everything that I've said, that he's still a second round pick at worst. No way he was supposed to be around at 83 in the third round for the Houston Texans to trade up to grab. And this was a guy that I had mocked to go in the first round. Many people had mocked to go in the first round. Okay, fine. He didn't go in the first round. There's no way he's getting out of the second round. But, oh yeah, he falls. Not only falls out of the second round, we're talking deep into the third before he's snatched up by the Texans. This is great value. This is a guy that I think could be a day one starter for you. You plug him in, and he can be the difference maker on this defense because, again, you got J.J. Watt. You've got Jadeveon Clowney. If you can get Brian Cushion to stay healthy, you've got guys that can make plays, and he's going to eat up space and blockers and give guys opportunities to have one-on-one matchups. And if you're getting that with the type of players that you have on your football team, game over. Game over. Flip, 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 game over. It's over. But he's got to play at the level that garners the type of attention that's going to allow J.J. Watt to get single coverage. That's going to allow Jadeveon Clowney to get single coverage. That's going to allow Brooks Reed and other guys to get one-on-one matchups off the edge. He's got to play at that level that's going to allow guys to get pressure on the quarterback. And we'll see. Because you've got guys that need to step up. Got a guy you drafted in the first round a couple of years ago that you've been expecting big things from. Haven't seen it yet. He needs to start getting pressure on the quarterback. Brian Cushion needs to stay healthy. And if Louis Nix is what I think he can be, guys will start to step up and make plays on this Texans defense. That wasn't already that bad to begin with in the first place. So, and I've been crying and begging and pleading for the Texans to get a true nose tackle. I remember when you guys were trotting out Sean Cody, at like 298 pounds at nose tackle. I was like, are you kidding me? Now you got a true nose tackle. Let's see what you do with it. So, in the third round, 83rd overall selection, nose tackle out of Notre Dame, Louis Nix for me. He's a double by himself, off his own merit. He's a double. And then the value that you get in the third round, 83rd overall selection, makes this pick a triple. Because he had no business being here. You had no business being able to still get a guy at a position of need all the way in the third round. It just makes absolutely no sense that he was on the board that long. Everybody else's loss is your gain. You trade up and you get him, and that is great value in the third round. Louis Nix, nose tackle out of Notre Dame. Fourth round selection, 135th overall selection, quarterback out of Pitt, Tom Savage. Tom Savage, for me, is an interesting case because I watched a lot of Pitt tape indirectly. There were times where I didn't even want to watch Pitt tape, but because I was watching someone else, whether it be on the defensive side of football or someone on the Pitt's offense, that I ended up watching Pitt tape anyway. And so I saw more Tom Savage than I was supposed to. And I'm going to tell you this right now. He's a tough customer. That's one tough cookie right there. Because he might have played the worst offensive line I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Pitt's offensive line was horrendous. They were terrible in every sense of the word. And, you know, sometimes you can overstate how bad something is. They're bad. I mean, they're really bad. I mean, they're really, really bad. okay? Tom Savage took a beating. The type of beating that quarterbacks don't recover from. I'm a little nervous about Tom Savage because he's got NFL talent. He's got the size. He's got the arm. He's got everything that you're looking for in an NFL QB. But he took a beating last year. The type that changes your mentality from a quarterback perspective. All of a sudden, you start to see ghosts. All of a sudden, you don't really know for sure if you got enough time to go to that third read because you know in college, I used to take a beating, and by the time I tried to look at that third read, somebody was ready to take my head off. And so I think it's going to take at least a year for this guy to get over the fact that nobody's coming, Tom. You've got time. You can go through your progressions. You can go through your reads and find the right man and hit him because he's got the arm. He can make every NFL throw. He's big. I like his poise and moxie in the pocket, but he took a beating. Now, some of it was him holding on to the football. But again, when you're shell-shocked, when you're a quarterback that's been hit as many times as he was hit last season, you can't blame a guy. I watched a guy like Patrick Ramsey, you may not know who I'm talking about, quarterback out of Tulane, the Redskins drafted in the second round years ago. And it was the first year under the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier. He comes in with the fun and gun, slinging the football all over the field. And P-Ram, as I used to call him, was in there and he was throwing the peel around. And he looked like a young prospect that had a bright future until we started sending 5 guys out in routes and minimal protection. Nobody in, no tight end, no back, no nothing. And teams started teeing off on Patrick Ramsey, hitting this guy in his chin, in his mouth, in his chest. And all of a sudden, P-Ram started seeing ghosts. And he was never the same quarterback. Go see Derek Carr. See what a beating, and you know that as Texans fans, you know what a beating can do to you repeatedly. You get a guy beat up, he starts seeing ghosts. He's not the same quarterback. He's a bruised and battered man, and he's never the same. And so I'm worried about Tom Savage. He took a savage beating last season. Yes, he took a savage beating. No pun intended. Okay, I'm lying. Pun is intended. He took a savage beating last year at the hands of his own offensive line. However, he stood in the pocket knowing he was going to take a shot. He used to stare down the gun barrel and make throws. And that's the thing I respect the most of Tom Savage is his toughness and his ability to stare down the gun barrel, knowing goodness well he's about to take one in the chops and deliver the football, deliver it on time and on the money. I think the sky's the limit for this guy. He just needs to fit into a system that is going to allow him to show off his arm. I want to see this guy push the ball down the field because he's got an arm that says he can push it down the field 15, 20, 25 yards easily with less effort than you see out of most college prospects. And I think a lot of people want to come with the Joe Flacco comparison. I could go for that. He's not as athletic. And a lot of people don't give Joe Flacco credit for being athletic. Tom Savage is not athletic. He's not running away from anybody. But he'll hang in the pocket. And he's big, just as big as Joe Flacco, at about 6'5", 6'4", somewhere in there. And he's got a gun just like Flacco does. I don't know if it's as strong as Joe Flacco's arm, but it's not far behind. And I tell you what, he's an interesting prospect. A lot of people like Tom Savage because of the moxie and the poise in the pocket because he took a beating. He took a beating and he delivered the football. And that's impressive. There's something to be said about knowing you're going to take a shot, standing in the pocket, staring down the gun barrel, and delivering the football. And so in the 4th round, 135th overall selection, quarterback out of Pitt, Tom Savage, for me, you know what? I'm going to give this man a triple, man. I'm going to give him a triple because I think he can start in this league. I really do. I really think he's got starting potential. He needs to be coached up in some areas, and I think he needs to go through his reads a little bit faster. I think at Pitt, he knew he was going to get sacked. And so that can cause you to make some mistakes. That can cause you to make some errant throws because, you know, I don't have a chance to get to my third read. I got to force it into the second one, whether he's open or not. Sometimes he'd hold on to the ball too long. And I think he just needs to hit the reset button. Get in a new environment with a new offensive line that's not going to allow you to be assaulted each and every single week. And hit the reset button and relearn how to play the quarterback position the right way. Because you can get bad habits and adopt bad habits when you know time's ticking. As soon as you get the ball in your hands from center, I got less than, 2 seconds to throw the football. I don't have any time because I'm going to take a shot. And so I like Tom Savage. The talent alone says that he's a double. The toughness makes him a triple. I like Tom Savage. Now, I question, and this could have easily made him a double. I question whether mentally he's going to be able to get over taking the beating he took last year. But I have confidence that he will, because that was only 1 year of getting your brains beat in. 2 and 3 years of getting your brains beat in has an adverse effect on you that usually cannot be reversed. It's irreversible, and you're done as a quarterback. But he only got beat up for 1 year. I think he'll be fine. So we move on to the 6th round, 177th overall selection, defensive tackle out of Alabama, Jeffrey Pagan. And for me, this is a simple evaluation. Here's a guy with 1 year of really solid tape and 1 year of production. And everything else is non-existent. And yeah, you play at Alabama, you're playing behind guys that are going to get drafted and this, that, and the third. But he couldn't get on the field. That's number one. Number two, to me, he's inconsistent. There's a lot here that he's got to learn, and there's some things he's got to get better at. And one of them is stacking and shedding. He's got to get off of blocks better. I feel like he's sticky. He's a guy that offensive linemen can get their hands on, and he's stuck. He can't get off the blocks, and he can't make tackles. And he doesn't own a paw of doom, and he's not getting to the quarterback. He's not dynamic. He's not explosive. He's none of those things. He's a guy that you want on your defensive line, whether it's at the 5 technique, and I really don't know if he's big enough or stout enough at the point of attack to play outside and quick enough to do all the things you want him to do at the 5 technique. I think he might even have to play inside, and I don't really know if he's stout enough at the point of attack to play inside. I honestly don't know where to put this guy. I don't know if he's a 5 technique or if he's a 2-gap, nose tackle or what. I really don't know how to place this guy because I didn't see anything, any elite traits. Sometimes he'll beat an offensive lineman off the ball with quickness and get in the backfield, whether it's going after the quarterback or going after the ball carrier, but those are rare. Those are so few and far in between that he was so inconsistent for me watching him. There were times where you'd be like, okay, that's a really nice play. And then you wouldn't see this guy flash for the next 3 quarters. So for me, he needs coaching. He needs a definitive role on your defense. And he needs to be in a situation, and he's going to have ballers around him. Obviously, with Clowney and Watt and company, he's going to be in a situation where nobody's paying him any attention. He's going to have to win one-on-one matchups. So in the 6th round, 177th pick, defensive tackle out of Alabama, Jeffrey Pagan for me is a single. I don't like a lot of what I see. He's inconsistent. It's only 1 year of production, and it wasn't a lot of production. It was just solid production. I think there's a lot of work to be done there, and it wouldn't surprise me if this guy doesn't make your roster. He's a single for me in the 6th round. You move on to another 6th round selection, the second of 3 for the Texans, 181st overall selection, running back out of LSU, Alfred Blue. And Alfred Blue is a guy that was sort of the change of pace to Hill out of the backfield at LSU. And he's a guy that's been around for a while and dealt with an injury in 2012. And I thought he was getting off to the best start of his career at LSU in 2012. 2 games of 100 yards. And I went back and watched one of those games in 2012. And he looked spry. He looked to be in the best shape of his career. He was running the ball well. He was catching it out of the backfield. He was that dual threat that everybody thought they were getting out of Alfred Blue when he came onto campus at LSU. And then he tears his ACL, misses the rest of that year. And to me, he hasn't recovered fully from that ACL tear. And so I think you'll be getting a different Alfred Blue in Houston, one that is a little bit more explosive. And this guy isn't that explosive to begin with. But I think you'll be getting a more explosive Alfred Blue at Houston than you saw in 2013 at LSU. And this guy can catch the football. He can run it as well. And surprisingly, he has good shoulder lean for a guy his size because he's 6'2". That is huge for a running back. And at 6'2", about 223 pounds, he's a guy that falls forward, can catch the football, has a little bit more moves than I thought he would for his size. Again, when you see a guy that big, normally they run straight up and they're easy to hit. They're an easy target, but he does a pretty good job of getting extra yards after contact and He can run in between the tackles. He can catch the football out of the backfield. There's improvement that needs to be done in terms of pass pro, because that's going to be his niche. If he's going to get on the field at the next level, it's going to be on third downs, because he can catch the football, and he's a guy that's deceptively quick. And so those are all things that will help him at the next level. But he's got to get better at pass pro if he wants to get on the field. I easily could see this guy making a roster, especially with all the injuries you had at the running back position, and then Ben Tate moving on to Cleveland. This, to me, is a no-doubter here that this guy's going to make your roster. If he comes in and he's injury-free, he picks up the playbook, and he shows a lot of the gifts and tools that he has that he showed at LSU, he'll make this roster, and he'll be a contributor to me right away. Just got to learn to be a little bit stouter in pass pro and picking up his blocks, and I think he'll be all right. And I like Alfred Blue, and I think he's a guy that'll help you. 6th round, 181st pick, running back out of LSU, Alfred Blue, to me, is a solid double in the gap. I think he's a guy that's going to help you on this football team. I think he's going to get a roster spot, and I think you'll be pleased with what you get out of this guy. He adds a different dimension to your football team, catching the football out of the backfield and being a third down back and a guy that can do a multitude of things. He'll be a solid addition to your team. You look at your final 6th round pick, 211th overall, fullback out of Auburn, Jay Prosh. And I'll tell you what, NFL and Houston Texans, meet the unsung hero of the Auburn Tigers offensive attack. Yeah, everybody knows about Greg Robinson. Sure, everybody knows about Trey Mason and Nick Marshall. This is the guy that I think is that cog in that machine that makes this thing go. All right, and this is one of those guys, unsung hero, goes under the radar, picks up his lunch pail and his hard hat, does his job, doesn't look for a lot of thanks or kudos for doing it. And that's the life of a fullback. I mean, I'm not saying anything that you don't already know, but go back and watch Auburn last season, and you'll see number 35 in the backfield going in motion and doing that little slide in motion and doing that little slow motion, and then him sealing off a block, him hitting the hole, and Trey Mason following right behind him and picking up massive yardage. Or watching Nick Marshall follow him into a hole and him leading away, smashing a linebacker, and creating the gaping hole that Nick Marshall or Trey Mason is running behind. Jay Prosh is that unsung hero. He is the guy that makes this engine go. He's the guy that's opening up the gaping holes, that's doing all of the little things that goes unnoticed. You see this 27-yard gain, but you don't see the block that sprung it. It was Jay Prosh. You see Nick Marshall faking the read option and going up the B gap, but you don't see that safety that got depleted. That was Jay Prosh. You see Trey Mason coming on a jet sweep, but you don't see the guy that came all the way across the formation and countered and picked up and sealed the edge on that defensive end, and then went to the second level and picked up the linebacker. That was Jay Prosh. And so that's what you're getting, a lead blocker that will do all the dirty work, do all the little things, and then all he asks is that you throw him a small bone in the passing game every once in a while. And the guy's a 4.7 40 guy, so he can run. Now, is it explosive? Is it quick twitched? No. Is he going to make anybody miss in space? No. He's a musclehead. He looks the part. He runs like he's a musclehead. But if you throw him the football out in the flats, if there's 15 yards there for him to gain, he'll get you 16. And that's the type of player that Jay Prosh is. He'll play H-back. He'll play fullback. He'll play tight end. Whatever you want him to do, he'll do it. And he'll do it gladly. And those are the type of glue guys you want on your football team. Those are the type of glue guys you want. And ever since James Casey left, you haven't really had a real H-back. Meet Jay Prosh, the unsung hero of the Auburn Tigers. He's now going to be, and I feel like he's going to make this roster, and he's going to prove to be dividends for your running game. And a breath of fresh air for a guy like Arian Foster, who needs a lead blocker that's going to go in there and smash some guys, smash some cats, and have heads rolling and open up some gaping lanes for this running game to take off with. Jay Prosh is your man in the 6th round, 211th pick, fullback out of Auburn. For me, he's a double. I like this guy. I like him a lot. Double, in the 6th round for the Texans and fullback Jay Prosh. So you move on to the 7th round. You got 2 7th rounders, 216th pick, cornerback out of Vandy, Andre Howell. This is a guy that I watch on tape. He's 5'10", so he's already small in NFL standards. Now, to me, 5'10" is about the average height for a corner. But again, we're moving on to this new wave and age of corner where you've got to be 6 feet, you've got to be 6'1", and you've got to be long, and you've got to be able to run, and you've got to be able to hang with the bigger receivers, the Josh Gordons and the Demaryius Thomases and the Calvin Johnsons and the Larry Fitzgeralds and all these big receivers. Alshon Jeffrey, never trust a man with 2 first names. Brandon Marshall. You got to be able to hang with these guys. And so at 5'10", not happening. At least that's the way the NFL sees it. But Andre Howell is a guy that will compete. You know the thing that really frustrates me with him is he's not fast. Okay, so you're 5'10", you run a 4.5 40. So you're not fast, and you don't trust your abilities. You watch the tape, and this guy is constantly in off-man coverage. And you can't live your life like that in the National Football League. You just can't. I mean, you can't give guys 7, 8, 9, 10 yards of cushion every single play. I mean, you got to get up and you got to challenge some guys. Sure, you're 5'10", and you don't have the speed to stay hip to hip with a lot of these guys, but you can't live your life scared, man. Scared money don't make money in this league. And so you got to come up. You got to challenge guys. And, yeah, you're going to get beat. Corners get beat. It happens. You know, selective memory. That's what you got to have if you're going to be a corner. But you can't be scared. And this guy, to me, is scared. He's off 7, 10 yards every play, giving up easy completions underneath. And I don't like that. I don't like guys that are afraid to go up and challenge receivers. And he doesn't have a high production at college. He doesn't pick off passes. That's because he's never close enough to pick off a pass. He's always off and giving up space. And I'm not an Andre Howell guy. I didn't like what I saw. But he does give you value on the special teams side of things. Now, again, at 4.5 40, is he going to be explosive on the special teams? Run back some kicks for touchdowns? I don't really know about that. I mean, I'm pretty sure you could find someone else that can do that. That's a little bit more explosive than he is. But, hey, look, there have been guys in the past that haven't been as explosive, don't blow you away with the 40 time, but they get on the field and they're the it thing at, kickoff return or a punt return. I mean, you look at Dexter McCluster, you don't see a 4.5 340 guy because he's blazing. And he gets the football and you're like, man, that guy's fast. You'd never guess he ran a 4.5 340 at the combine. But that's what he did. So maybe a 4.5 isn't bad because the guy's got some moves and he can run back kickoffs. But as a cornerback, I'm not enthralled. As a cornerback, I'm not enamored with this guy at all. And so you know where I'm going with this. In the 7th round. And that's why he's a 7th rounder. He's there in the 7th round for a reason. 216th overall selection. Cornerback out of Vandy. Andre Howell, for me, is a single. And he had to leg this one out. He had to leg that single out. And he had to slide, and he barely was safe. I mean, I'm not a big Andre Howell fan. He doesn't do anything for me. So you're slow, you are short, and you don't compete. I'm talking about challenging receivers. Like I said, the guy competes just from 10 yards out. I mean, what am I supposed to do with that? I just don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. So you wrap up this draft in the 7th round, 256th overall selection. Safety out of Memphis, Lonnie Valentine, Mr. Irrelevant. And Mr. Irrelevant is going to be irrelevant. I don't think he's going to be relevant. I don't see him making this roster. Now, I will say he has one elite trait. Speed and height. So, hey, I lied. He's got 2. All right? At 6'3", about 215 pounds. So, yeah, he can stand to put on some weight. This guy runs a 4.39 40. So, anytime you start talking sub 440, that's blazing fast. And when you're talking about that being in a 6'3 package, now you got my attention. I'm intrigued. But then you put on the tape, and it doesn't translate. I didn't once see 4.39 40. Never. I didn't even see 4.4 40. I saw a guy that was out there running at 4.5. So, obviously, there's a disconnect there, and he's got to play faster. If you're that fast, I need to see that on Sundays. I need to see that on Saturdays. I didn't see that. That straight line speed is what it is. It's not change of direction. He's not running through ball carriers. He's not using that speed to his advantage. He's just fast. Okay, some guys are track athletes. They can run straight line, but in terms of a football guy and it translating to the football field, I don't think that's what Lonnie Valentine has. I don't think he has football 4.39 40 speed. I think he's got track 4.39 40 speed. But in any event, it's there. I don't know if you'll be able to tap into that or not, but this is a guy with low production at Memphis. Didn't really do a lot. Doesn't pick off a lot of passes. He's always late to the party. He's one of these guys that doesn't read and react very well. Doesn't diagnose run quick enough for me. If you're a 4.39 40 guy and you see run, I want you bearing down on the line of scrimmage. I want you hauling tail up to the line of scrimmage and laying the wood on somebody. And he's standing there and he's waiting and he's waiting. And I'm like, anytime now, Lonnie. Anytime now. And Lonnie's like, oh, okay, it's a run. It's a run. And then he goes down. And by then, play's over. I'm like, Lonnie, get down there. Okay. I'm seeing quarterbacks running read option, running by Lonnie. And I'm like, wait a minute. And you run what? What? No, that can't be. So there's definitely a disconnect between what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and what's on tape. Because Lonnie doesn't read and react. And again, there's a lot of work to be done here. If this guy's going to make this roster, he's going to have to be more instinctive. He's going to have to show us the speed that everybody says he has. Because again, I'm not buying it because I haven't seen it. All right? You're not going to sell me a bill of goods and I can't actually touch and see the product. There's no tangible evidence, nothing cogent that I can put my hands on, put my eyes on and say, okay, yeah, the man's running fast. I don't see it. He doesn't make plays on the football. He's always late. Day late and $1 short in a 7th round pick means most likely you're not going to make the squad. 7th round pick, 256th overall. At least he'll be relevant because he's Mr. Irrelevant. But in the case of safety out of Memphis, Lonnie Valentine, he's a single. And unless someone is enamored with this guy and the skill set that he brings with the speed and the height, I just don't see this guy making a roster. He's a single. He almost got thrown out from the outfield. All right, so he hit it, and he tried to leg it out, and he almost got gunned from left field. So that's a guy, keep your eye on him. He could make this roster if someone really likes all of the things that he brings to the table. Because, again, you can't teach 6'3", and you can't teach 4.39 40. But he's not instinctive. I don't see the 4.39 40 showing up. And if they can't get that out of him, I don't think he'll make this roster. And so that's 10 picks in all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Home run in the first round in Jadeveon Clowney. That guy is a freak of nature. Xavier Suafilo in the second round. Home run for the guard that I was drooling all over. That I think is so versatile, it's not even funny. Double for C.J. Fedorowicz. Iowa Y inline tight end that's going to run block his tail off and catch the occasional pass. Triple for Louis Nix, nose tackle. Your first true nose tackle ever. And I loved Earl Mitchell. And I think he's going to be a beast in Miami. But he was no nose tackle. Sean Cody? No. Louis Nix? Real deal. Can you get the most out of a guy that has the utmost talent? Triple in the third round. Tom Savage, quarterback prospect that you're going to work with. And I think he doesn't need to play in 2014. He needs to study. He needs to learn his playbook. He needs to get his confidence back from taking that savage beating in 2013 at Pitt. I think he's an interesting, intriguing prospect in the fourth round. He's a triple. Sixth round, Jeffrey Pagan, defensive tackle out of Alabama. Not impressed. He's a single. Alfred Blue, running back out of LSU. Double. Is very versatile. Think he brings a lot to the table. And Jay Prosh, fullback out of Auburn. I like this guy a lot. Hard hat, lunch pail guy that's going to put a hat on someone on every single snap. Double. Andre Howell, corner out of Vandy. Really don't like what I see. Not aggressive enough in the passing game. Plays too far off. He's too short. He's not fast enough. And he doesn't trust his own abilities. He's a single. And Lonnie Valentine got the measurables. 6'3", 4.39 40. But I don't see it on tape. Played at Memphis and didn't have a lot of production. He's a single and I think a long shot to make this roster. So there you have it. Home run, that's 8. Double, that's 10. 13 after the triple. Another triple, that's 16. Single, 17. Double, 19. Double, 21. Single, 22. And single, 23. Divided by 10. That's a solid double in the gap. You stand up, call for time, readjust your batting gloves. It's a double for the Houston Texans in the 2014 NFL Draft wrap-up. So not bad at all for the team that held the #1 overall selection in 2014. You know how this goes. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me here on this program. Texans take a double out of the 2014 NFL Draft wrap-up series. So only one question remains. Who's next?
Draft Zone.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.